You were taught that the history of Brazil begins in the year 1500, when European ships arrived on its shores. That's the version that appears in textbooks, timelines, and classrooms. A clean beginning, a simple origin. But there's a problem with that story. It ignores something massive, something uncomfortable, something that changes everything you thought you knew. Because how do you discover a land that is already home to millions of people? When those ships appeared on the horizon, Brazil wasn't empty. It wasn't silent. It wasn't waiting to be found. It was alive, dense with life. Entire civilizations were already there, living, building, farming, shaping the land. They left marks still visible centuries later, and yet, somehow all of that was erased from the starting point of history. So the real question isn't when Brazil was discovered. The real question is, why were you taught that it began there? Imagine standing at the edge of a vast coastline, looking inland. What you see today is a country defined by cities, roads, and borders. But go back in time, long before 1500, and what you would find is something even more complex. Networks of communities, systems of trade, knowledge passed through generations, and most importantly, a deep understanding of the land that sustained everything. This wasn't a scattered population surviving randomly. This was organization, structure, culture, entire worlds that existed without stone monuments, but with systems just as sophisticated, just as intentional. Now picture the Amazon. Today, many see it as a wild, untouched forest, a place too hostile for large-scale human life, a green hell. But what if that idea is completely wrong? What if the Amazon wasn't just inhabited, but actively engineered? Recent discoveries are forcing historians to rethink everything. Beneath the dense canopy are traces of vast human activity, roads stretching across kilometers, geometric earthworks carved into the soil, entire settlements connected by networks. From above, using modern scanning technologies, patterns begin to emerge. Perfect circles, massive squares, straight lines cutting through the forest. These aren't random, they're deliberate, designed, built. And here's the part that changes everything. These structures weren't built in spite of the forest. They were built with it. The people who lived there didn't fight nature, they collaborated with it. They shaped it slowly, carefully, over generations. They created fertile soils where none should exist. They cultivated plants and transformed entire regions into productive landscapes. What you're looking at isn't just a forest, it's a legacy, a living system partially created by human hands. And suddenly, the narrative shifts. The Amazon is no longer just nature, it's also history. But if millions of people lived there, if societies thrived, why don't we see their cities today? Why aren't there ruins like pyramids? The answer lies in the materials they used and the environment they lived in. These civilizations built with earth, wood, and organic materials. Materials that return to the soil in a hot, humid climate. Over time, the forest didn't just grow around their cities, it absorbed them. What remains isn't obvious, it's subtle, hidden. You don't see towering structures, you see the shape of the land itself, altered. For centuries, explorers misunderstood what they were looking at. They assumed it had always been that way, untouched, empty, pristine. But that assumption ignored a critical possibility. What if the forest had grown back? What if what they were seeing wasn't the absence of people, but the aftermath of something that had already disappeared? Historical accounts from early European expeditions describe rivers lined with large communities of thousands of people living along the water. For a long time, those reports were dismissed as exaggerations, fantasies. But now, archaeology is confirming those accounts. So what happened to those civilizations? The answer is brutal, and it's one of the darkest parts of this story. When Europeans arrived, they brought diseases, viruses and bacteria that the native populations had never encountered before. Within decades, entire communities were devastated. Add to that conflict, displacement, and the collapse of social systems. Millions of people gone. And when that happens on a large enough scale, something else begins to change. The land itself. Fields are abandoned, roads fall into disuse. Nature, relentless and patient, begins to reclaim everything. Trees grow where houses once stood. Roots break apart what was built. Over time, the forest closes in until there's no visible trace left. By the time scientists began studying the Amazon centuries later, what they saw was a fully regenerated ecosystem. It looked ancient, untouched, eternal, but it wasn't. It was the result of both creation and disappearance. Because the idea that Brazil's history begins in 1500 isn't just incomplete, it's misleading. It centers the narrative on the arrival of outsiders, while ignoring everything that came before. It reduces thousands of years of human history to a footnote. It turns complex civilizations into prehistory. And once you see that, it's impossible to unsee, because Brazil didn't begin when it was discovered. It began long before that. It began with people who learned how to live in one of the most challenging environments on Earth and thrive. It began with knowledge of plants, of soil, of ecosystems that modern science is still trying to fully understand. It left behind something extraordinary, not ruins, but transformation. The forest itself became the monument. Think about that for a moment. Other civilizations built pyramids. These civilizations built a living environment that continues to exist today. And yet, their story is barely told. So the next time you hear that Brazil was discovered in 1500, remember what that leaves out. Remember the millions of lives that came before. Remember the cities hidden beneath the forest. Remember that history isn't always written in stone. Sometimes it's written in the land itself. And sometimes the greatest stories are the ones that were almost erased, but not completely. Because now, piece by piece, they're being uncovered again. And as they are, they force us to ask a different question. Not, when did Brazil begin? But, how much of its story have we yet to understand?